I had a hobby too. Mine happened to be guns and ballistics, and I studied guns and ballistics as much as I could, and I wrote an article about high velocity.
So out of all my years working at Weatherby, the last 5 have been some of the most exciting. Working with Adam, with him running the company.
And to think that I get the opportunity of carrying on my grandfather's legacy 75 years later here in Sheridan, Wyoming, I mean, it really is a dream come true.
Oh, I'm home. Thank God I'm home.
On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast.
All right, welcome to On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast. I'm Zachary Hine, the Marketing Director, and I have Adam and Brenda Weatherby here to talk about hunting in the West, hunting with your partner, and learning more about your spouse than you've been married for a long time, you're still learning things, and hunting's kind of bringing some of those things out. We just kind of got off on a little tangent just a moment ago, communication, and basically thinking that you're doing the right thing, but then maybe not doing the right thing. So we just launched a new video that's doing very well on YouTube. Your elk hunt from last year, where you got 2 bulls in 5 days. So if you haven't seen that, head over to our YouTube channel and check that out. Most of the time you guys are hunting on camera. How is that? How is it to hunt as a couple with not just your spouse? You end up having more people along.
Well, it's easier for Adam than me because he's really natural behind a camera. I feel this intense pressure to say the right thing. So it's a challenge for me, but I try to just be myself, and then half the time I make a fool out of myself.
That's not true. No, it's just showing who you are and being genuine. And,
sure.
Sometimes we don't like to watch ourselves on camera or hear ourselves in audio, but, that is who we are.
No, it was fun this year. We just got back from a hunt here for Brenda. I think that we'll be talking about. It was kind of fun and refreshing for it to be, just the two of us. It's fun to get out there and, capture some great both still and moving images and do some cool things. But sometimes it's great to just get off the grid, which is what we were able to do this year for her hunt. So
So tell us just a little bit about it.
The hunt?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we, it was our 4th elk season here now, living in Wyoming. The first, we were still technically a non-resident, but then had to use out-of-state points. But then I think 3rd year is on some resident tags. And so this hunt was different in that I have some other hunts lined up. I'd already shot my mule deer buck previously, which I think we'll probably talk about on another podcast, which was a great hunt. And I'm actually leaving in 2 days for my elk hunt. I drew a great unit, going to be going, which will have a film crew on it. Going to be leaving in a couple days for that. So this was, Brenda had an elk tag and had a mule deer tag that both weren't filled. And so this was a hunt really to go out and look for what Brenda wanted to hunt this year.
Yep, general tag. I didn't draw anything. I'm not that lucky.
Yeah.
But
I drew a good elk tag. Did I mention that?
Yeah, he did. He always does.
Last year we drew as a party, but this year, because I was doing this film, a separate deal, and then we didn't. But
so it's kind of open. We had lots of different avenues we could go. But we had some friends who just purchased a ranch, and they really knew, they're not hunters. They didn't really know anything about what was even on their land, and we didn't know either. So we thought, well, let's just go poke around.
Yeah. So it was different this year. We'd kind of been in the bighorns and largely the national forest the last couple of years, and so it was a cool opportunity for us to go out to a different part of the state and really kind of look around some land that really hadn't been hunted in quite a while as far as big game hunting is concerned. And so I was able to get out there and do that. So it was just a great blessing that these folks, good friends, let us hunt out there.
For sure.
So,
and you kind of had a little bit of change recently, sending kids off to school. So now you basically can do what you want.
We kind of can. Yeah, we're now empty nesters for the last couple months. So our youngest graduated, and kids are in college. And so, it was definitely
weird.
So it was kind of fun. We got to go on this hunt, and without a camera crew, without anybody else, and just us two, and kids were kind of gone, so there's nothing to get back for. And you guys do such a great job running Weatherby. We thought we'd leave.
Yeah, so we packed a whole bunch of good food, and
yeah, we did.
took our jumping jack. So
Yeah, which is like a pop-up tent trailer, if you're not familiar with
yeah,
that.
kind of
Shout
like a
out,
wall
Jumping
tent
Jack.
on wheels. So pretty cool. We did have a kitchen, so that made it a little easier. So, but
Didn't have water for a while, then got water.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, but we're, if you saw the film last year, we packed in with llamas. This year was a different sort of scenario. And we love the backcountry, and that's kind of where our heart is. But it's fun just to hunt different land, different ways. And people are like, oh, public land. It's like, well, yeah, we hunt public land predominantly, but there's a lot of land. We love hunting land. We love hunting. We love seeing critters. And, so this year was an opportunity it was great. We knew that we would crest a ridge, and there's an orange hat, somebody on the the animal we were tracing and tracking, and that definitely happens. But this was a hunt where that didn't, so it was kind of neat in that way.
yeah, while we were driving out there, we had seen some bulls and cows, and the owners had told us they'd seen some kind of by this pond. So we were like, okay, this might be kind of boring. We might just be sitting at the pond waiting for something to come by. And as the first day out there, it's pretty kind of boring land. It looks a little boring as you're driving. But as we got further into the acreage, it just opened up into all these draws and little cedar bunches. And we just saw some amazing things. We were literally like taking pins and taking pictures to go back and show the owner what kind of land he really bought. So it was really fun to kind of be like the first explorers of that ranch. It was really neat, and all the different wildlife that we got to see was just cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
It's kind of a different feeling when nobody else is out there.
Yeah,
Because a lot of times you get back in the backcountry and you're like, there's nobody else out here,
Yeah.
and then you're like, there are 8 people,
Yeah.
all set up with wall tents and everything. It's like, well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was cool. What we didn't know going in was the population of elk, so it was a little bit different, or their habits or where they hung out. There really wasn't a lot of scouting. We'd gone out there for a night previous, and that was about it. So a big part of it, it took us several days to kind of figure it out, and we kept stumbling. We were just, if we'd only known that, And so, first morning we saw a good bull, but we were in the wrong spot and didn't kind of know. And then it was just kind of all those different things. We were kind of always one step behind kind of the whole way. But it was fun we love figuring things out together. We love, even when we've vacationed over the years or gone places, learning different cultures or whatever it might be. It's fun to kind of do. So we were just kind of learning this area. And this was more in a less mountainous area for elk, and elk originally prairie, more type of animals, and so it was in that type of habitat. And I'm used to hunting elk in much steeper, more wooded terrain, and it's a totally different scenario. So they're pretty jumpy as well, real jumpy.
Yeah, we kind of figured, okay, these animals probably haven't been hunted, so they're not going to be as jumpy. That was not the case.
Yeah, certainly.
Well, so was the stress less? Was knowing you had 5 days and knowing that you could basically do it at your own pace and not being worried about, is the camera guy along? Is he going to get the shot? There are a lot of things that go into that. Did it change the way you two were able to communicate and the pressures and all that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it took a little bit of stress off, but I think hunting in general for me is de-stressing. So if the time that hunting becomes stressing, then I'm probably out.
Yeah.
So everyday life can be stressful if I have to have a good time hunting, and we do. So hunting to me, if I'm no phone, no people, just one focused area, like looking for game for hours and hours and hours, that's really de-stressing to me. The only part that gets stressful to me is making the good shot. Like, I'm not a seasoned hunter, so I have to really plan and prepare, walk myself through these steps so that I'm really mindful of the game that I'm pursuing, and I don't want to mess up. I want to do it right. So Adam tends to be much more seasoned, so he could do something in 12 seconds where it's going to take me about 45 at least, maybe probably more. Maybe more, 90.
Well,
or 5 minutes.
That's okay though. Sometimes the season, sometimes the season hunter necessarily is not going through the steps you're going through. And maybe they may not be taking the shot that they should be taking. So I've definitely done that this year. So
what ended up happening on this hunt too is kind of the better bulls that we saw had a very short period of time in which we could see them and hunt them. And we had several spikes and very small bulls that, boy, were we set up and ready for. So
I love being set up and ready. I like taking the last breath, exhale, pull, all of that. The two bulls primarily that we had opportunity on, it was probably 24 seconds and 38 seconds. And so that just wasn't enough time for me to feel comfortable doing that.
Wind wasn't right on the probably two best bulls we saw. Wind wasn't great, and so they got us on those. They were playing the wind in these draws pretty strategically for them, and the ones where we knew some good bulls had come before, and then we set up on. Then when we finally set up on that, the big bulls took a break from that spot that day, and the spikes came out to play. So we got a lot of good close-up shots of spikes. Yeah. So that was fun.
There's another thing that this hunt helped me realize is that I rely on Adam to tell me if it's a good bull or not. I'm not good. I look through and I'm like, I don't know. Tell me whether to shoot or not. And so I realized that I don't know how I'm going to learn that, but up until this point, I'm relying on someone else to tell me whether it's a good bull or not. I don't look at the points and I can't do that quickly. Like someone has to give me a class on that. Do you have a class to recommend? Because I don't know how to do that.
Well, you learn every time we go out though.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But I still am not confident in that. So I'm looking through the scope going, should I shoot it or not? I don't know. Is it a good bull? I'm not sure. It looks big. They all look big. I don't know. What's the comparison, And so that was an area where I was like, gosh, if I could do that better, I'd be a better hunter. And I could never go elk hunting by myself right now and be confident of what I was shooting. I don't know.
Well,
so.
I mean, you're definitely going to come home with meat, though.
Oh, of course.
You would have had a spike in the truck in no time.
Yes,
she could tell a spike from
I could tell a spike.
Wow.
But I don't know. I'm not good at that.
Yeah. No, I think, some of the kind of the classic moments where we, and when we talk about just relationally and hunting and different things, there's been some times that we've hunted where I've rushed her. Or there was miscommunication. We had a situation a couple years ago, and even this hunt, there was a time where she put her earplugs in, had a hat on, and it was cold, and then she put her hood on. And we had a situation a couple years ago where I was calling yardage, and she misheard me, and the hood's all up there. So the other day when this happened on this hunt, and she went to do it, and I was calling yardage, I looked over and I saw the hood, and I immediately just grabbed the hood and just ripped it off. So I'm like, no, I need you to read my lips. When I say 320, I didn't say 520. And so even that communication, we had a moment where I ripped that off. What's funny is when she ended up shooting,
she ripped it off, and one of the earplugs came out.
Her ears were ringing, had a break on it. So it's not always perfect, but we had a couple instances on this hunt where the largest bulls we saw, we did jump and they did wind us, but they stood broadside for X amount of seconds, and so I didn't want to overreact and say that's a giant bull, get down and shoot it now, and I didn't want to go through that, and so. So it's probably the third or fourth morning when that happened.
That biggest one came
out. We had it 2 mornings in a row. Bottom line, we had 2 mornings in a row where we got winded, and they just kind of popped out where we didn't think they were going to be. In this terrain, it was you couldn't just glass them on kind of normal, a mile away on meadows.
So it was hot.
We were hunting in T-shirts in Wyoming in October. She had a
I
tank
was
top
in
on
a
the
tank
first day.
Adam doesn't hunt in a tank top. Let's clarify
I don't wear
that.
a tank top, but at that point, I just hunt without a shirt. But anyways, we were in T-shirts. So they weren't grazing out on hillsides, even first light and last light. So we really had to hunt them hard to kind of find them, and so it was a little bit tougher. So we couldn't see them a mile away. We're perfect on the wind and do that. And so this first time where it happened, it got broadside, and she was setting up. and I was trying to not play the super urgent game because I didn't want to rush her or frustrate her. And so
Then afterwards, I was like, well, I couldn't tell if you really wanted me to shoot it or
I
not.
really wanted her to shoot it, but I wasn't trying to overplay it and bring more stress on it.
Yeah, you're like, I'm like, it's a good one. You should shoot
no,
it.
you should get down.
Trying
That's
to
a
keep
shooter
it-
bull. That's a shooter bull. You should get down right now and you should shoot it. He's broadside right now. He's 350. Okay, he's at 500. You should shoot the bull. And then I just was quiet because I was like, I didn't want to
shoot
put
the
the
bull. Please
heat
shoot
on.
the
And then she was getting ready, but it was, when you're surprised like that,
Oh, yeah.
you're like, okay, do I
Sticks
have
and
one in the
this and
chamber?
that.
And am I shooting off sticks? Am I going prone? What's my position? And all those kind of things. And so that bull.
So, yeah, after that first one, we realized, I shouldn't have done sticks. I should have just dropped my backpack and gone prone. And so after that, it takes
we
him
reanalyzed it a while. It took me several hours of hiking to get over the fact of
Decompress
that.
a little.
Yeah,
Yes.
which I was like, wasn't
She's
meant
like,
to be.
oh, I don't care. It wasn't meant to be. I'm like, no, it was meant to be.
We got to reiterate right now.
Yeah.
Brenda had the tags,
Yes.
and you did not.
I know.
But here's the deal. Adam's the type, he really wants me to be successful, and he
Yeah.
always has. And so that was nothing selfish. That was more like he just wanted me to succeed.
Yep.
But it took him a while. So then fast forward the next 24 hours. This one, and I didn't see the bull, and he's like, get ready. So this time,
It was actually a bigger bull the second morning.
Yeah.
I know you didn't know that, but it was. But go ahead. Yes. And we replayed the first morning a lot. So go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then the second morning, I didn't see the bull. I didn't know if it was down in kind of the, what is that, in that break.
Yeah, draw, yeah.
Or if it was across. So the last one was down, and I should have been prone. So I got down prone, and it was across.
And it was uphill.
And so then I was like, crap.
And he
so
was
then
at 500 yards.
I was adjusting, and I wasn't, so just those learning lessons.
And both times, those 2 mornings, which was morning 3 and 4 or 4 and 5, I don't know, I get them mixed up, a few days in the hunt. Both times she got there, and if the bull would have stood broadside for 3, maybe 4 seconds, it'd have been dead. Both times.
Yeah, like brown
less
in
than
the
5
scope,
seconds.
but
she just
not-
obtained
not-
it.
yes.
And was about ready to do the breath. Like it was right there. And it's as if the bull knew both times.
It heard the
I'm
breath
done-
going out. and
I'm
it was-
done standing broadside looking at you. I gave you the chance,
And you're done.
And you're done. And so both times, literally, she was at the exact same stage, 3 seconds away from having that bull dead. So that was us.
But he was regretting those mornings. Basically, you put 2 on top of each other, and now he really is having a hard time getting over this. But for me,
That's funny, huh, Zach?
I was relieved that I didn't make a bad shot, because I've had, in the last 6 years, I've had a few hunts where I very much regret the shot that I made. And
Based on rushing it, maybe.
based on rushing it, either total miss or then having to track an animal and just feeling horrible, going like, I didn't do my part, So for me, I was relieved, and I was like, oh well,
She's like, I didn't miss and I didn't wound an animal.
yeah,
So
I don't.
it was-
Those are the top 2 things I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And so, living up to that Weatherby, people expect that I've hunted my whole life. If there's anything I want to do on a hunt, is I want to shoot well and enjoy the creation around me. Those 2 things. So.
And this is why I love her. Isn't that sweet? Because most dudes that are listening go, if there's anything about the hunt, I
gonna
want to
shoot
get the
the
one I'm
biggest
after, And so, which is great because we, balance each other out in that way. And it's something that I totally respect. What's funny is her tag, but it probably, those 2 mornings, it was
It
tearing
hurt him worse.
me up.
Yeah, you were probably amped more.
Oh, so amped. So amped. Because then it was so hot, too. As soon as that early morning light was done, we're like, cool. Now we got 11 hours to sit around and think about it till they're going to come out somewhere again.
But
And so then,
after that second one that I didn't
Yeah.
didn't get a shot off on, you were kind of relieved because you thought, oh my gosh, she might have a bigger bull than I've ever had. And so there was a sense of relief.
that's not true.
Take your time. Take your time.
Because if he had a tag, that thing would have been down.
No. So we, and then each time we did get set up, and so even in the evenings we got set up, and man, it was perfect. Okay, there's an elk. I mean, we had multiple times. There's the cow. big bull's going to be with them.
Okay, there's a spike and a cow. Okay, the next one's coming.
There was one night, all by themselves, was a spike and a young cow. She called it Young Love.
Oh, they were so cute.
They were smitten for each other, and we were like,
we watched
where's
them
the
for
herd bull?
25
Because
minutes.
we were early October, so they were, in this unit, it was open. I know different units open at different times, but it was, they were paired up for the most part, but even during the hunt, they were breaking off. And so we were kind of at a transition point.
Yes.
And so we saw this spike in this cow. That was in the morning or evening?
Evening.
That was in the evening. We're like, yeah, this is, because we'd seen
Around the corner.
some
It's
more
gotta
mature
be coming.
bulls with some of that. And then we went on just to watch these lovebirds for like an hour.
Oh, the cow was just like looking all around, and then the spike was just looking at her.
He'd just stand there like looking at her, and then she'd go up maybe 100 yards, and she'd be kind of looking around. And then he'd just be like staring at her. It's the cutest thing you ever seen. So we just got to watch some animals and some wildlife, which was super fun. And yeah, just have some of those moments. So, so it was going to be schedule-wise, food-wise, everything. It was going to be about 5 days that we had set aside for this hunt. It's usually about how long we can kind of spring out without other things taking place.
Yeah.
So we got out there, and at the end of the hunt, it got towards the end, and it was going to be our last night that we were there, and we could maybe hunt that next morning too. There was some weather coming in, and didn't know how much that would affect it in a negative way.
And wasn't it on that day, we kind of actually, a light bulb went off, and we went, oh my gosh, the big bulls
we
are
were maybe
actually
hanging out
not
this different
here.
spot.
They're
And
over
in the
here.
mornings they were here, but in the evening, we're just figuring things out. It takes several days when you're on a
You'd
DIY
been there
hunt.
for a few days. How did you not
Yeah.
know already?
Right. So we were trying to kind of figure it out. So I think by that afternoon, we said, okay, I think we've come up with a good plan for kind of this last night. And if not, we had that next morning, the first few hours before some big wind and kind of some stuff was going to come in. So we had a night and a morning kind of left, and we were going to give it our all in a new kind of spot where we think maybe some of the better bulls were hanging out. So
I think it was about 3:30 or 4, something like that. And we are
on our way.
On our way to find this, elk spot. And there's 2 nice mule deer that just kind of came right by us and sat there and looked at us.
So she shot
cocked
one.
their head. It ended up being a really good mule deer. Definitely my best deer.
Excellent.
So it was kind of a surprise.
On an elk hunt,
A little surprise. Old deer. Adam kind of thought that he had actually maybe peaked last year and was kind of declining. So old deer, super cool deer. So
It is a 3x4, but just a beautiful, beautiful buck.
Yeah.
So that just happened.
Yeah.
It was one of those, we were finally in the kind of the right spot at the right time, and we hadn't really seen many good bucks at all, and we're really elk hunting on this trip, but it was general for both, and so she had a tag as residence for both, and so we knew we could stumble across a buck that she wanted to shoot, and we hadn't yet, and she did it like 3-something in the afternoon. So
I love that about hunting, that like you can plan it all right, and it can go like terribly wrong, or you can not plan it and it goes perfectly right.
Right. You go hunt good mule deer for a week and not see one, and then be hunting an elk and stumble across one.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what keeps us going, because if every single one was really, really hard, it'd just be like, what am I doing?
Or if everyone was easy and scripted.
Exactly.
Then the same. So diversity of it is what kind of keeps us.
You never know.
So they always say hunting is hunting, like for a reason. And sometimes you get those breaks. And the buck was a break. I think it was a little like,
pick me up.
Just pick me up after those couple mornings. And then the other times where we were set up and then there was no mature bulls, we just kind of need a little something. So we decided to gut out the deer, tag it. She.
Okay.
She.
Just make it clear
What?
that I got my own animals.
Oh, no. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no. She gutted the animal 100%
Great.
herself. Yeah, didn't even get my hands bloody. I just held the leg open.
Yep.
That was it. I said, we decided
Oh, good.
after she gutted the animal. Sorry about that. Do we need
Some
to recut
people
the scene, or are
assume-
we going to just
No,
take this one
some
live?
people assume.
You're right.
Like when
You're
I
right.
go out hunting with other people, a guy's like, well, you're not going to gut that, are you? And I'm like, well, my husband makes me gut it.
Wait a minute.
No,
Want to.
I do want to, but you say it's your deer. And I'm like, you're right. It's my deer.
She's really good at it.
Yeah,
I am-
you might
I'm-
get her to
I'm
gut
faster.
your deer for
I
you.
think I'm faster than him.
I probably won't get her to gut mine.
She'll say, "It's your deer."
I'll say it's your deer.
Mm-hmm.
But after I shot it, I was like, let's go get elk. I'm pumped. I'm like
So we were on our way probably mile and a half from where we knew we were going to be hunting elk, and the deer was there. So we gutted the deer. Actually, we were close enough to the car where we go get back in the truck, drove to where we were going to hike from the truck, and then went after elk knowing we'd have about an hour and a half to hunt elk. Mm-hmm. And so we had the deer tagged, gutted, and then basically hiked up, and the storm started to kind of come in a little bit early. Actually starts to rain on us. It had been so hot, I didn't even have my rain jacket with me. It starts to rain, and we go up this peak and kind of had this pick-me-up moment, and the weather starts to turn, and as a hunter, that's always exciting. It starts to get a little bit rainy. That was exciting. We had a beautiful dead buck on the ground. That was exciting. And so we kind of were like, you know what, this is going to be a good evening no matter what. Mm-hmm. It's kind of how that started. So we went up, and we saw one bull, and one cow with that one bull. It was not as large of a bull as the two other larger ones that we had seen, so we knew there were larger bulls out there. And so we had that conversation, as hunters and meat eaters and conservationists and all those things, and her tag, like, is this a bull, like, we want to go pursue?
Yeah. And at that moment, he went over the hill. He was going to go look in the opposite direction to see if he could see anything.
Because this bull was out grazing where we finally had a view several hundred yards away.
Good wind.
It was like the situation we'd been waiting. The weather was changing. If a film crew would have been there, it would have been amazing. It was like everything was lining up for this.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the same. The bulls that we were after.
Sure.
Yeah. And then I didn't know.
It was a five-point bull.
You know what? There might be a bigger bull that's coming out behind him. There's a cow. So we didn't know. He was on the other side of the mountain trying to figure out if there was anything else. He came back.
The sun's going down pretty quickly at this point.
Yeah. So
Time's
we're
running out.
I'm like, well, should I?
Big crosswind. Real big crosswind.
So we kind of went back and forth. Then in that time, the bull had kind of gone out of sight. We didn't know, well, are we going to have a chance anyway? So kind of went back and forth. The cow, anyways, back and forth.
Then it kind of came up to, let's go hunt it and pursue it.
Yep.
And as Brenda said, the experience is there. Making a shot is there. She just shot this buck. She's really wanting to harvest this meat. I mean, we eat wild game several nights a week. Like, that's part of it. And so it was like, if this is meant to be, before dark, it's going to be meant to be. And how many times have we done a stalk and said, yeah, let's shoot that animal? It doesn't work out anyways. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Either we were, going to get, well, we probably wouldn't get winded there, but either they'd see us, or probably more likely they wouldn't see us. We were in a pretty good situation, but the cow could have certainly, or they could have, they were in an area where they're just in and out of sight. So we're like, or the sun goes down and the light's gone.
Yep.
Or a big bull pops out last moment. So we're like, let's go see what happens, and if everything lines up just right, she'll shoot this bull.
Yeah.
So we went over there, got set up at 300 yards, which compared to everything else was really close to what we'd kind of been seeing. Elk hunting out here out west, 300 yards is like 50 yards. It's like...
Yes. Bipod on the front, over a rock, backpack
rocky
on the back.
ledge.
There's nothing more solid that I could ever do. It was better than a bench rest, literally.
And then we sat there, and then the wind and rain came up, and then the bull went out of sight. And then the minutes ticked. No other bulls came out, and it was going down. And then at one point even you said, it's getting cold. I'm going to put my jacket on. She puts her jacket on. Cow elk bedded. We seen the cow elk. She bedded, and the bull was around this point where there's no way we would have had to go reposition ourselves. It would have been dark.
Oh, yeah.
So we were stuck.
Wait or not, yeah.
And so the cow beds, and then even I remember you're like, I'm cold. Starts to rain again. She puts on her jacket, and it's nearing dark. Nearing sunset. Sunset happens, and you have 30 minutes after sunset. Usually that's you don't want to shoot an elk.
Yeah.
Many minutes.
Yeah.
After sunset.
Then we saw his antlers, so we're like, okay, he's right there somewhere.
Yeah, we knew where he was.
He stood up.
A couple minutes after sunset.
He stood up, And then we're like, oh my gosh, he just bedded. We're like, we're done. We're
So,
done.
but we were kind of like, if it was meant to
right.
be, it was meant to be.
Oh, we'll do it tomorrow. That
And
was
if
fun.
not,
that was
It's
awesome.
a good 5-point bowl, and like it was cool and everything. We knew there's some bigger bowls out here, and so we did that. And then we kind of had both just reframed for like, hey, we'll get up in the morning, we'll have one last shot, and if not, we can maybe try to get back out here before the season ends. But our schedule's pretty busy with other hunts and different things, so maybe not, and we'll see what happens. And then
Cow stood up.
a matter of minutes after sunset, and there's clouds too, not a lot of light. Yeah, cow stood up.
Cow stood up and went over to the bull, got the bull to stand up, walked
With a
up
matter
on the
of
hill.
minutes.
I mean, walked up with the most perfect.
So he stood there broadside on the hill at 300 yards with minutes of light left, round in the chamber,
Perfectly
rest.
set up on the rock.
She drilled him. Yeah.
And then he's doing this, and Adam's like, just do one more.
Because
so we
it
don't
was
have
minutes
to
after
track
light,
him.
I'm not a big fan of tracking elk at night
So
or
I-
any time, but
yeah.
especially at night. So said put another one, and it was like 2 inches from the first one with a pretty heavy and just rolled him.
Yep.
He's exactly where we thought he'd be. I mean,
Perfect.
he died on his foot. It'd have been a one-shot kill, no doubt. But if you've been elk hunting a lot,
insurance.
Cheap insurance. Well, these days, though, ammo is hard to come by.
Well,
It's still cheap insurance when you're.
luckily, we're making it faster than we ever have.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes. Side note, we're making more ammo than we ever have, so stay patient, which is a true story. It's just all y'all are hoarding it. That's what's happening. So then we went over there to the bowl that night and got to celebrate together that within a matter of hours had a dead buck on the ground in a dead bull. We decided to quarter it up, that night on the ground. So did a gutless quartering and took all the meat off, including the tenderloins and backstrap and all the quarters, and got those in game bags kind of late that night. And it was just kind of one of those moments. I don't think we do it in about an hour and a half together as a couple. I mean, elk are always bigger when you get up to them.
Yeah.
You get up here like, oh my gosh, we got a lot to do.
There was a point where we must have spent 10 minutes just trying to get his leg out from under him. You know how that
Yeah.
goes if you've ever elk hunted. So
And if you've ever, cut up an elk with Adam, he always has to have music on. So what was the first song that was playing, and we were just laughing that's what came on?
it came on the playlist. Shot to the Heart. Shot to the Heart. It was on my daughter's oldies play mix. and I didn't have service, and I only have so many downloaded things off Spotify. You know how that is? You go, why don't I download more things? Well, I don't have phone service. And so I'm like, put it on her old playlist. It had the Guardians of the Galaxy songs, all those old ones. And then literally I set it down. Usually I put on country, like George Strait's my favorite cut up meat songs, And I put it down. It's shot to the heart. Like, that was hilarious. She's like, oh, Adam. And we just went to town on things, spent an hour and a half, listened to music. Storm was coming in. It was raining off and on. Just,
The perfect end.
cutting up an elk. It was
Perfect
it
end to
was
5
fun.
days.
And so then we hiked out of there, probably, I don't know.
Took like 35 minutes or something in the dark.
Yeah.
And I have this magical thing about hiking out in the dark. I think the first time we had to do that was probably our 2018 elk. And I remember it was just the two of us. We hiked out in the dark, and I was scared. Like, I was pretty scared about hiking out in the dark. Now I have it as this like courage building thing. Like, what could happen? Like, I'm here with my best guy, my only guy.
I was actually
It's just something weird. I don't know, and maybe that's a girl thing. But most girls, they're hiking out in the middle of
the middle of the night.
the
Yeah.
night, in the middle of who knows what. They're scared of bears, or they're scared of everything. And so I love hiking out at night. It fortifies my courage that everything's going to be okay. Like, it's just a cool thing.
She's always thinking about that. I was probably still analyzing the elk and, figuring all those things.
And humming shot
looking
to the
at
heart.
Well,
Yes.
looking at on X, making sure we could find our way out in the dark.
Yes,
she just follows me.
Yeah, I do rely on him to do that. I get turned around quite easily. But we did get back to the car. Wrangler was waiting in the car for us, our pup. I think he was more worried than the rest
So
of us.
we
Your
actually,
other best guy.
Yeah,
My
we
best
actually took
guy.
Wrangler on this hunt, which is the first time we've ever taken a bird dog in a big game hunt, because we kept them different places that we had access to. too, and buildings and different things. And he just got to hang out with us, so he got to sniffle dead animals, which was kind of fun.
Yep.
And then we went by, obviously, and got the buck, and were able to hang that and skin it rather than having to do that in the field. And Brenda drives an old, like an old Land Cruiser, an 01, but it's a Lexus one, but it's pretty sweet. It's got like all the off-road mods, you've seen it, and so she's got the big winch on the front. And two of us, it was a big hefty mule deer, couldn't get it up high enough, and so we used the winch and over a tree, and used Brenda's big.
I did stab my
Burley car.
speaker with one of with the antler, but it's a really bad speaker. I really need to replace.
Long
the
story, but we
speaker
didn't
anyway.
have. Yeah.
So I'm gonna get a new speaker out of this too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. So, what out of all the hunts you guys have done together, what one sticks out as like the one you would love to repeat? The one, if you could do it over again, if you could do it again and be in that situation again, what one would you choose?
Could I change what happened on the hunt,
No.
or I have to live it exactly as it happened?
Well,
Because I think the one, if I could change it, I would change the worst hunt that we've ever had together, and I would have
What?
changed.
Oh.
Like, remember the one where? You remember the one?
Oh,
You remember that bad one?
yeah. Yeah.
I would have changed that one. But if I can't change one, they're also different. I don't know. I mean, I loved our llama hunt.
That was hunting with llamas, not for llamas.
Yes.
Just to make that clear.
Yeah.
I wonder, what does a llama taste like?
No, I loved. I loved our moose hunt. That
Yeah,
was
just a different
amazing.
experience of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They're all unique. They're all
Well, we learned a bit how to hunt with each other, and this one was fun because I wasn't hunting. I didn't have a tag that would work in that unit. So
sometimes it could be more fun.
yeah, it actually
'Cause
is.
it's different.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was super stoked because she made a great shot on the buck and a great shot on the elk, and that's what she wanted. And they're both great animals. And I think tomorrow night we're having over my folks, and her sister's coming to town. We're having a meat cutting party. Probably start with shot to the heart and butcher it up. So we've kind of built up a cool meat cooler here, and the Meat Your Maker sent us a bunch of really good meat processing stuff. Shout out to those guys. And so we do butcher pretty much all our own meat, and so I think this year we've already had a number of things in the. I've shot my antelope and mule deer, and you've got all three of those, so that's 5 right there, just of the Wyoming game. So,
Excellent.
that's something too as part of the process for us when you talk about sharing in it together. Because we got back, my antelope was in our cooler, and should have made our walk-in bigger. Did one of those CoolBot cooler homemade deals, and so we got back like we got to dish that antelope. It's been hanging since the hunt I went on last week. So we got back from that after having to butcher and quarter those 2 animals and bring them back, and then we had to spend the afternoon the day we got home cutting up the antelope. So,
It's
kinda
good
fun
work
too.
though.
Oh,
It
it's
is.
really good
It's
work.
fun. It's fun.
The meat part's really, really important to us. Like that whole cycle. I don't think I'd be a hunter if there was no meat involved. I definitely wouldn't be a hunter if there was no meat involved. So that part of making it part of your everyday like sustenance for your family and knowing where your meat came from and actually being intimately involved in the cuts, and it just adds a huge deal.
It's a totally different dimension, especially when you can, 3 months, 6 months, however long,
Yes.
be able to revisit that and actually share it with people.
Yeah.
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 So,
Yeah.
what kind of cuts do you go for? If you brought home that elk, what do you do as far as roast, burger, sausage? How intricate do you get with it?
So that night, I definitely packed out the backstrap and tenderloins because those are my favorite, obviously, like everyone else's. But we burger, we roast, and we sausage. So fronts I usually do in burger and sausage stuff, and then rears
Some steaks, some
do for
roast,
Some steaks,
some
yeah,
roast.
everything.
Yeah.
It depends on the animal and the age of the animal, and
Yeah.
does versus bucks, cows versus bull, and just kind of the predicted tenderness. It's going to
Sure.
be in it too, kind of what that is. But I mean, tenderloins usually are our favorite.
Yep.
Favorite.
And the
cut.
last couple of years really tried to hone in on some recipes that are good for different cuts. Because you can't use backstrap for everything. But that's been cool. I've really enjoyed, doing my cooking show, Wild Flavors. And
Shout out to Brenda Weatherby's cooking show. Go to YouTube, Wild Flavors. Yeah.
So it's been really fun. I actually just found 2 new recipes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do these. I got to share these. So super fun to expand our horizons than just putting a steak on the barbecue or making spaghetti, even though I do that every week. But the recipes and finding what cut works good for different recipes is super awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, so looking forward, what are the next hunts on the schedule? Where are we going? What are we doing?
Well, I got an elk hunt in 2 days.
Excellent.
So, 15th opener for elk.
Okay.
So not sure when this podcast is going up, but I don't know, but I don't know those things, but you guys do. So anyways, I'll be out, looking for a bull myself, which will be fun.
Good deal.
Yeah. So that's the next thing. And then we have a lot of family stuff after that. So nephew's coming out. California, he's 12. I'm going to try to get him his first buck. Some other friends. Our son Connor has been out elk hunting several times yet to connect. So that's a big priority. So a lot of times kind of halfway through the season, we shift to helping other first-time hunters, nieces, nephews, kids, daughters wanting to shoot a buck. So we're going to be shifting to a lot of that kind of stuff here for the latter part of the season. So,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
My sister's coming tomorrow, and she has never hunted with me. She's meat processed with me, but she hasn't ever hunted. So we are going to try to go out for an antelope doe, and hopefully it's somewhat mild and somewhat not difficult. We'll see. But trying to ease her in to just kind of give her that experience and have a good time. So I'm looking forward to that too.
That'll be when I'm gone, and you don't have to judge the antlers, so it works out pretty good.
Works out great.
Perfect. I don't know. You can get into those horned does.
That's true.
Be looking for a trophy doe.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, awesome. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast.